Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, July the 3rd, 2019. Show number 1220. I'm your host, Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
Happy Canada Day to all of our Canadian friends. Yay!
Yeah.
And happy July 4th tomorrow to all of our American
Our tanks
friends.
didn't arrive. They got held up.
We just had beavers marching down on the street.
And yeah.
I'd be interested to know, Sherry, when we talk about this, I want to know you guys what you say. Banff, Alberta, Canada didn't have the usual fireworks for Canada Day. They had what they call, I never heard of them before, these low noise fireworks. You ever heard about this? They're not, according to the video I saw on YouTube. But how many places now, for example, our little town of Gibsons, didn't have fireworks this year for any number of reasons. Very, very dry forest. We live in a heavily forested area, although the fireworks would have been over water. Also a lot of concern, at least that I saw on Facebook, for animals, both wild and domesticated. Is that a concern for you personally or for your neighborhoods? What do you think? Do you think fireworks should be banned in general to prevent these kind of stresses on animals and people?
Well, you know, when we have tiny little just born deer going through the yard, it's hard for me to go, yeah, it's okay, let's just have the fireworks, because they're everywhere and they could run and get separated from their mom. And no, I do like fireworks, don't get me wrong,
me
but
too.
I'm okay without them. Like, life goes on.
Many humane societies report the day after July 4th in America as the number one day for people to bring in lost pets.
No, they just
Because
run.
The pets have run away. They
Yeah.
get out of the house because everyone's outside.
And people's not taking responsibility and going,
That's
let's
the other
leave.
part of it, too.
Yeah. Because on Halloween, I always like to make sure the cat is in.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's scary, right? There's firecrackers going off and stuff.
I'm lucky. I've never had an animal that was that terrified of fireworks, firecrackers, and that kind of stuff. They've been a little skittish, but I know people who have had animals who are just completely freaky out. I mean, they're peeing and pooping, and they're scared. They're under the bed. And
It's horrible.
It's horrible for them.
Yeah.
So as much as I love fireworks, I understand why people
Yeah.
want to ban them. It's a shame, but there's really not much we can do about it. The article I posted on The Loop talked about these low noise fireworks. You can do a YouTube search for low noise fireworks. You'll see some examples of them. But from what I saw on YouTube, they're you might think they're low noise, but if you're an animal, that's still going to scare the crap out of you.
Muffled, not really that different.
Yeah, barely muffled. It's not that.
It's a firework.
Yeah, it's
Silly.
got to have a certain level of explosive power to get them up in the air. So
Yeah.
as much as I would never vote for or against either way because I see everyone's position. The other thing is we forget veterans, people with PTSD of any kind.
We do forget.
That it can affect them too. So there's not just an animal cost; it's a human cost to them. Humans can hopefully take care of themselves a little bit better, but there's no guarantee of it. So yeah, I see both
That's
sides
okay.
of it. It's a shame because I remember as a kid that was one of the big things with Canada Day, July 1st for us.
And it's summer, and that's that. Yeah.
Everyone's outside. Everyone's having a good time watching this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was we had a thing here called Sea Cavalcade, a little small town sort of parade stuff.
It was a big deal here for decades and decades. It's the first. It's not on anymore
And
now.
it was canceled. And because it was canceled, they also canceled the fireworks, too, after consultation with city planners. When I first read this story, I was very, very upset by this. Denver, Colorado, culling Canada geese, donating meat to needy families. They started doing this on Canada Day, July 1st. They rounded up out of the 5,000 Canada geese population in Denver. They rounded up 300 of them, killed them, and are now donating the meat to needy families in Denver. My first thought was, you bet. Wait, Canada geese? Yeah, kill all you want. They're just giant, vicious, flying rats. I don't care. I didn't know they were even edible.
No.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't think I've ever had goose meat before.
No, I haven't eaten goose.
I've had duck and chicken and all the other kind of birds, but I've never had goose. But you know what? If you want to kill Canada geese, America, go for it. Kill all you want. I can't stand those things.
By that very by that very action, then you could start looking at anything to run around and kill to give the meat to the needy.
As long as it tastes good.
Yes.
Not going to give rats to the
No,
needy.
I didn't mean that. I meant they must have masses of turkeys running around down there.
Not free range.
Are you sure?
Not the way they do in cities with Canada geese. I guarantee you.
Pigeons?
Pigeons don't taste very good, from what I understand.
Oh, they don't? Okay.
When I lived in Iowa City, they had to bring in sharpshooters with crossbows to cull the deer population. That seems like too much work. Just use a gun. But yeah, the Canada.
Yeah, but it's in the city. You can't use a gun.
Canada geese can be an awfully big problem in Canada and in the U.S. So yeah,
Yes.
I don't have a.
They're very good at breeding.
And shitting everywhere. They're offensive little creatures. Can't stand them. So yes, eat all the ones that you'd like.
Oops, sorry.
Why do you keep doing that? We've been doing this show for a year now. You think you can use where the microphone stand is?
Oops.
I came across this funny little thing. I'll say the
You
word.
came across the funny little thing 2 years ago, but go on.
Jeez, that's a little rude.
No, never mind. Sorry, peeps. Go
No
on.
kidding. Jeez. I'm going to say the word. You tell me what it means. Okay?
I'll try.
Straya.
Australia. That's Australia.
Gold.
It's really good, or
I didn't
it's
know that.
like, oh, it's
That
gold,
ACD
man,
show was gold, man. Sticky beak.
Oh, you're being like a Snoopy. Like you call me Snoopy, like a
never
snooping
heard
on
of
your neighbors. Don't be a sticky beak.
These are all Australian slang terms
She's
I
such a
found.
sticky beak.
I've never heard sticky beak before. She'll be right.
She'll be right. Everything's fine. It's all good.
Where's that come from?
She'll be right, mate.
Arvo.
Afternoon.
Now, what did your brother say about the servo?
Oh, the servo.
gas station.
I'll just go down the servo, pick up some milk.
Tracky Dax.
Tracky Dax. Tracksuit pants?
Yeah, sweatpants.
Sweatpants.
Face like a drop pie.
Oh, it doesn't sound good. I don't think she's pretty.
One of my favorite ones that you use is what's the camper? When you're describing someone who's flamboyantly gay.
Oh, his camp. Oh, I don't want to be mean.
Just not mean. It's funny.
His camp is a row of army tents.
I love that one. Blower.
Blower. The blower.
I'm on the blower.
I'm on the blower. I don't know what that is.
And I didn't realize that was Australian. I thought it was a naval term. I'm on the phone.
Oh, I'm on the blower. All right.
My
yeah,
dad
yeah.
used to say that all the time.
Oh,
because
did he?
in the Navy.
Because it's like a thing that runs through the ship, like a tunnel, like a funnel thing that runs through the ship when you're on the phone.
You finished interrupting me? No, on the Navy they have sound-powered phones. So when you get them to start, you blow into it to get it to start. Yeah, it's called a blower.
Well, we do have a Navy in Australia too, you know.
Ripper.
When something's ripper, it's like, yeah, ripper.
Yes, but what does it mean?
It's just great.
Is it great?
Or it's exciting, or you're getting a bit of a buzz off it or something.
Bludger.
Your bloody bludger is when you're what do you say? Like when you're kind of living off the government, or you don't work very much for your money. You're just a bludger.
Sunnies.
Sunglasses.
You say that like we all should know that, but I've never heard anyone but you call them sunnies. Crack onto.
Oh, when you crack onto a girl, or you crack onto a boy, I'm going to crack onto him tonight. Oh, my God. To bring him back.
What does it mean?
You're going to, sidle up and...
Flirting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Pash.
A kiss. A very long, passionate kiss.
Chuck a sickie.
When you take the day off work, when you're not really sick.
Brekkie.
Breakfast.
That's what we all use that. Everyone uses.
Do they? Yeah.
Everyone uses brekkie. Whinge.
Oh, when you're a whiner.
It's also a British term.
You're a whiner.
Dunny.
Toilet.
Where's that come from?
The dunny? I think there's a whole photo essay on Australian toilets.
Chockers.
Chockers? Or when something's full?
I guess that means from chock full.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Isn't that to do with a shipping term? Chockers? Chock?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Fair dinkum.
Fair dinkum's like, honestly, like really, fair dinkum.
Now, as North Americans, I'm sure the first time most of us heard fair dinkum was from the movie.
Oh,
Crocodile
Crocodile Dundee.
Dundee.
When fair dinkum, mate. Yes.
And so I just assumed, again, that was made up. And the first time your brother said to me, fair dinkum, mate, I almost fell down laughing.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I know.
He actually said, it's like when he was in Italy, and the first time I saw him go, Mamma mia. I went,
It's like,
you
it
actually
really
do that!
happens. Yeah.
But
see?
as I learned from Melissa and the rest of her family, Australians don't say shrimp on the Barbie.
Not really. No, that's ridiculous.
You-
I never heard it in all my life.
You don't call them shrimp anyway. You call them
Call
prawns.
them prawns.
And you don't barbecue them. You boil them.
No. Well, no. Well, we just eat them. You go
That's
buy
right.
them and you just eat them.
Togs.
Swimmers.
Yeah, swimmers.
Oh, sorry, swimsuit.
Yeah, swimsuit. Stubby.
That's a beer. It's a little beer.
We used to have them here, too, in Canada. The short beers.
Little
the
short
and squat
stubbies.
ones. Stubbies.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet as.
Sweet as? Well, sweet as. How can I describe that? It's just sweet as. Just nice.
But it's
something.
funny that's the term. It's not sweet as pie or sweet
Just
as.
sweet as.
Just sweet as. That's
Mhm.
it means awesome, apparently.
Yeah, like something's sweet, I
But-
guess, if you want to shorten it even more.
But you wouldn't here in North America in English say, "Oh, that's sweet as." Sweet as what?
Sweet as.
Ta.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's also a British term. Whoop whoop.
Oh, if you go, well, Mum would say, oh, you go out and, go to whoop whoop. Or Mum would say, oh, it's way out and whoop whoop, which meant you'd have to go really far to get somewhere.
I remember the first time you said
No,
that.
I had to go in the car and go out to whoop whoop today to get the... So silly.
Had to go to whoop whoop.
I think it's even... Maybe it is a place. I don't know.
I thought that was just absolutely hilarious.
You
The
got to go
first
all the
time.
way to whoop whoop.
The first time I heard that.
Oh, the back of Burke. You got to go to the back of
yeah.
Burke.
Yeah. And we call it back and beyond.
Oh, do you?
And
Burke is really a place. The
and
back of Burke.
I gotta say, the first time we went through it on the train from Newcastle to Sydney, and on the train they have the next station is this, and the first time I saw this, I almost peed myself laughing. Next station, Woolloomooloo.
Woolloomooloo. Yeah.
You've got a lot of very funny sounding words.
Well, they're Aboriginal.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's interesting you say that, because to us, Aboriginal words are like Squamish. They have hard.
Well, they have different.
In Nuvik.
Mm-hmm.
There are harder vowels.
Yeah, I'm
sounds.
sure that. Well, Susan, it's fascinating. I became fascinated speaking with Susan Gear about languages, and so it's interesting to think about where in the tongue or where in the mouth I'm sure it's different for all Native Americans, but for Australian Aboriginals, they probably speak in a very different way
Yeah,
for their dialect.
I hadn't thought of that before. I hadn't thought that's. I don't know why I hadn't. It just hadn't crossed my mind. But when we hear North American Native First Nation words, we can recognize them as such.
Yes,
You know what I
because
mean?
you're used to them.
We're used
Yeah.
to the sound, even if it's a word I've never heard. If I say skookumchuck, I know that's a Native.
Yeah, but I can't
First
say
Nation.
Squamish. Squamish is how we say it.
Yeah.
But the way they say it is
Different.
it's a very difficult because we're not used to speaking that way.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the little ones that we work with that are of Native American descent, their language was taken away from them. So they have difficulty with articulation,
Yes.
even still through all the generations. It's fascinating.
That's true. Later on tonight, later on the show, we're going to have our starting point photography segment, talk about fireworks, how to shoot fireworks, both on your phone
Yeah.
and with a DSLR. We're going to have, I have a question with Melissa. She has a question about.
I have an inquiry, actually.
Sorry, it's not a
An
question.
inquiry.
It's inquiry. I'm not changing the show now. It's not, I have an inquiry with Melissa.
Oh, no. It's a question.
What's
It's
your
an inquiring
inquiry?
question. It's about whether Apple has ever suggested using the Apple Watch for children, and in this day and age of gaming and trying to get them away and closing their rings.
Cool. Up next, we have a pre-recorded interview with our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop. He's in. He's asked to got a dinner engagement this evening, so we had to do it early. But you'll hear that right after these messages. All that and much more coming up. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. This is a previously recorded interview with our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. How you doing, Jim?
Good. You caught me right in the middle of drinking beer.
Well, that's not unusual, though. That's
Usually I've had enough now where I don't even apologize for it, though.
Just burping in the microphone. Yeah. So the big news, obviously, this week is Jony Ive is leaving Apple. And depending on where in the spectrum you sit, one end is good riddance, he was a shitty designer, to, oh my God, Apple is doomed. Where do you fall?
I fall right in the middle.
Dead
of
center.
I think he was a magnificent designer, and I don't know how anybody could even start to dispute that.
Yep.
But I think that Apple and Jony made it very clear that he's still going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, I know that he's gone from Apple, but what I wrote last week was I think that Jony wanted to do other things, and I think Johnny's wanted to do other things for a long time, and
Yeah.
Apple kept convincing him to stay, and they just ran out of ways to make Jony stay.
I'm going to reserve judgment on whether or not Apple and Jony are going to continue or will continue working together. Until I see something happening, it feels like that might just be PR spin to
I don't think so.
To soften the blow of this. I don't think we're going to know for a fact for a while. But that being said, and as I said in the Your Mac Life Daily, Ive was not a perfect designer. He wasn't a faultless design god. There's plenty of mistakes that can be laid at the feet of Jony Ive, not the least of which is, that ridiculous charging port on the bottom of the Magic Mouse. I mean, that was, come on! It still hasn't been fixed to this day. So, yeah, he's not perfect, but he is the person, I would argue, that for the mainstream consumer has put design of things front and center. People are paying attention to the way things are designed now, and people, I think, understand the importance of design. Even if they don't know who Jony Ive is, they appreciate what he's done for them for their products, whether they're Mac users, Apple users, iPhone users or not, correct?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think Johnny wants to do more of that stuff, but for other things.
Yeah.
I think Johnny has, and Mark Newsom is his partner in crime here. I think that they have ideas for all kinds of different things that they could design that will just make things better. And yeah, I think the time has come where, they gave Johnny a C-level job. He designed and Apple Park and all of these things for the last, 25 years.
Yep.
And I think he just wants to put his name on something else, and you can't blame him for that. So if he is going to be Apple's first customer, then I think that Johnny will continue to work with the team there, but he'll have more time now to do those other things.
Do you think Apple let Ive go from the point of view of, yes, 3 years ago they created this chief design officer job for him that they'd never had before and aren't refilling with anyone new, at least for the time being. Do you think Apple could have kept Ive in any way, shape, or form? Because there's no other job for him at Apple except for CEO. They really couldn't have kept him if they wanted to, could they?
No, I don't know. I think that they did everything over the past 5 or so years to encourage him to stay with the chief design officer job. Johnny doesn't need the money.
Yeah, that's right.
He doesn't need the recognition from that crowd. Yep. He's already got all of that. All he needs is he's doing this now, one, I think, for fun and for legacy. And I mean, his legacy is already set in stone too. But,
Agreed.
If he can do other things, no matter if that's a computer or, a toaster or, a car, whatever it is, I think he just wants to have fun and design things. Now, obviously, with him opening up his own company, he's going to have a lot of clients that want to have his. And they'll have it out there, designed by Jony Ive. So that'll be a huge thing for companies, but it's not going to come cheap. But he doesn't care about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it. You've seen Ive participate in designing other things over the last few years as he stepped away from the day-to-day nitty-gritty. He's done a Leica camera. He's done some things with his apparently good friend and new partner, Mark Newsom, a whole bunch of fashion-type stuff. I think it's pretty obvious that Johnny does want to do things that aren't computer-related or maybe not even Apple-related. Maybe he wants to design cars. Maybe he just wants to design furniture. Who knows? Remember, he came from that kind of design background. The famous story is that before Apple picked him up, he was designing toilets in London. They were really nice toilets, but they were still frickin' toilets, So I think that's a completely understanding. He's been at Apple for almost 30 years. So that's a long stretch at any company for anybody, let alone someone who's undoubtedly worked as hard with as many hours. He's also said in the past, too, that he misses London. He wants his kids to grow up with more of a British upbringing rather than a California upbringing. That may be too late, depending on the age of his kids, but that's an understandable desire of a father to want these things for his children. So I don't think anybody can begrudge Ive doing what he's done. He's doing it for himself, his career, his family, whatever it might be. That being said, the day after he makes the announcement, what position do you think Apple is in? Do you think Apple has now, as some have said, will have lost its mojo and will become just another Dell, just pumping out products? Or do you think that Apple, Ive and Cook and Apple have put in place a group of people who can carry on, if not Ive's style, it's certainly his legacy?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that's what all C-level execs are supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
right? We know that Jony had taken some time off to work on Apple Park, and he wasn't involved in design stuff at all, and the other people were. So, Apple has continued on. They've continued just fine doing their stuff. So I think that Jony has put in place some quality people that, know what they're doing. So they're just going to continue on.
I think one of the problems, though, might be one of the reasons why there's so much Sturm und Drang around this is that nobody really knew who the other people that Jony had around him that had taken over those day-to-day issues. We didn't really know their names. They were there, and if you were inside Apple or a real, a close follower of the company, you'd heard these names before. But the vast majority of the media, tech and otherwise, thought that Jony Ive did all this stuff by himself. That he was just the one guy in a studio with a CAD machine creating the latest and greatest devices. That's obviously not the case. He was the final arbiter, I'm going to assume, but as he said many times in the past, as Cook has said, all this stuff is a teamwork effort. There is a fairly sizable group of people who both get ideas from and give ideas to Ive and the others. So those people are still there for the most part. So, yeah, some have left and moved to other jobs, and that's fine. The concern that I had when I first read the press release, and Gruber later pointed it out, is that the two new people who are basically going to fill in the various jobs that Ive was responsible for Ive was reporting directly to Tim Cook. Now these two new people, including the first female lead designer at Apple, are reporting to Jeff Williams, who's the chief operating officer, who then reports to Tim Cook. Did you have the same queasiness as Gruber described it when you read that new org chart?
That is a little bit different, but you can't just throw somebody into a chief design spot and go directly to Tim without knowing. That was a very special position for Jony.
Yep.
So, Apple is kind of falling back on the way that, design was originally done. It was done through another senior executive. So, whether Jeff is the right person for that or not, you don't have Jony anymore, so it has to go to somebody.
Yeah.
So they don't really have a whole lot of choice.
Was this an opportunity, do you think, for Apple for the proverbial think outside the box and bring in an outsider, or do you think they sort of had to hire from within?
Well, see that I would go on Johnny's recommendation for that.
Yeah.
Jony either has faith in his team or he doesn't. And, you can't bring in, I don't think a design role is one of those ones where you can say, okay, well, he's going to push paper all day and he knows his numbers and he knows how to, track the supply chain. So let's hire this guy from this company.
Yeah.
Nobody does design like Jony does design. So how are you supposed to pull somebody in at that level to do design? I don't think you can. I think you let the people that Jony trained and know the system and know what Apple looks for and what Apple customers look for. I think you let them do it.
I think this is a company and a particular job that requires so much of a feel for design in the big picture idea, but also design from not only a consumer electronics point of view, but also from a Apple point of view. They have their own specific design sense. And I don't think you could just bring in somebody at a design school, even if he's 10, 20, 30 years out of design school, who could fit in the same way immediately as those two people that Apple has hired to do. Now, maybe 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you'll see them bring in somebody else to oversee this stuff. But I think right now, at this, as I've described it, as a quiet time between product announcements and WWDC and the Mac Pro being leased and Apple Park being open, all that kind of stuff. I think now is a great time for these two people to come in, and they're not getting their feet wet. They're jumping in the deep end. There's a lot of things that are. There's the iPhones coming in September, rumored new MacBooks, et cetera, coming in the future. So,
but don't forget, these people have been in there
Yep.
for a long time.
Yep.
You know, they're not just jumping in and doing this. They were doing this while Johnny had his time off.
Yep.
And they've been doing this while Johnny was there. So, you know, now they do have a bigger role. Granted, that's the truth, but they're not jumping in as brand new. Like, they didn't just start on Monday and all of a sudden they have to fill Jony Ive's shoes.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think it's as desperate a situation as what a lot of people are playing it up to be.
I was quoted as saying, "I certainly have an ambition and feel almost a moral obligation to be useful. I feel I've been fortunate enough to work with remarkable people over the last 30 plus years and have worked on some very interesting projects and solved some very difficult problems. I feel keenly aware of a responsibility to do something significant with that learning." I think that means that this new company, Love From, that he and Newsom are creating, they're not going to be designing chairs. They're not going to be designing things that don't mean something. I don't think you're going to see, and I'm sure Apple has a non-compete with Johnny for at least 3 years, if not longer. You're not going to see Ive suddenly working for Samsung or Dell or those kinds of companies. They're going to branch out and do things that, from their point of view, are important projects. That being said,
Right.
What would you like to see Jony Ive design?
Anything. You know, whatever he designs is not going to be cheap.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to be, you know, the typical mass market thing. Although he could design a toaster or something like that, and people would flock to buy it.
Yep.
You know, because it would be better. Because he would make it out of different material, and he would make it so that stupid pull-down thing maybe wasn't a thing anymore. Or, you know,
it'd be the world's thinnest toaster, too.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, things would just work when Johnny does them. So I don't care what he does. I really don't. I'm interested to see what he decides he needs to do. But I think that there's, between him and Mark, they've come up with some ideas of things that, problems that they want to solve, and they want to help design the future. And I can't blame them for it.
Ken Siegel, formerly Apple's ad exec, on his blog, kensiegel.com, has an interesting comment. He says, Apple could become the classic band that keeps going after the founding members have left, sounding more like a tribute band than the original. Do you think that's a concern?
Well, I think all of these things come down to one assumption, and that's that Johnny's not going to be involved.
Yeah.
And that's not what I've seen so far.
Interesting.
So if the founding member is still writing songs in the band, but just not singing,
yep,
then, you know, you still have that heartbeat.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting you feel that way, because it means that I'm more cynical about this than you are. For me, like I said, I read these press releases from Apple and the comment from Cook and Johnny as just being marketing PR. They couldn't say we fired Johnny and we're never going to talk to him again. They had to say something nice.
They could have said Johnny has after 30 years or whatever, Johnny has decided to pursue other projects.
Yeah.
No, they said that Apple is going to be its first customer.
Yep.
So I think what will happen now is that, you know, these other people will do initial designs and consult with Johnny. And Johnny will say, no, you need to do this instead.
Yep. And
they'll go back and, you know, do that because Johnny said. I don't think this is as desperate as what people think.
But
I just don't.
But Ives isn't going to have that power anymore to say, no,
you don't
can't
think
do
so?
this. I don't think so. No.
I think so. If Johnny is, you don't think Johnny can just call Tim anytime he wants? Yeah,
I think so. But
they're gonna send over designs. Johnny's gonna say, "Oh no, this is the wrong direction. You need to do this instead." And Apple is gonna make that happen. And if they don't, Johnny's just gonna say, "Look, Fuck off.
See, I don't see it that way. If you're the one of these two new people that Apple has hired, and you go to Jony for air quotes advice, you want to be able to know that your boss Williams and Cook will then be able to. You'll be able to say to them, "I don't agree with Johnny's advice. We need to go with what I said." If you say to these two people, if you're Tim Cook and say, "No, I'm going to go with what Jony says," that undermines them as employees of the company.
Do not think so.
Okay.
I think it's been laid out already.
Yeah.
Where this is the way that it's going to go. That's what I think.
Okay. Let's move on to as soon as I saw this, I knew it sounded suspicious. The Wall Street Journal article that was a scathing, as some people described it, indictment of Ive and Cook. They weren't talking to each other. The Ive had moved to San Francisco and rarely came down to Cupertino, et cetera, et cetera. And Tim Cook took the very unusual step of commenting on this to NBC News, saying it was absurd that the reports about Jony Ive's departure from Apple. Who do you believe, the Wall Street Journal or NBC News and Tim Cook?
Well, I think the way that it normally goes, it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. Did some of those things happen that people describe where, like Jony didn't show up for meetings or whatever? Probably.
Yeah.
Is it as big of a deal as what the Journal made it out to be? Probably not. So, some of those things could have happened. If you take 3 or 4 bad things and put them in one article that happened over 20 years, and it sounds bad.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's over 20 years, and then you realize that, okay, well, during that time, they still did all this great work,
That's right.
So it's not that bad. Now, is it a full-fledged indictment of Jony? No. Was there at any time during the period that this story was written, was there any time where there were bad feelings about design decisions? Probably,
yeah.
But that's normal. I mean, Jony and Steve never always agreed on everything either.
Yep.
So so I take the story, and if you lay it all out and you think, okay, well, here's 3 or 4 bad things, but how many in that time, how many good things could you say that happened? Well, probably a lot more than those bad things. So I don't doubt that some of those things happened and that they have people that were there that, saw that Jony didn't show up and maybe they were pissed off with it. And, the Journal will get in touch with them, said, do you remember any bad things? Well, there was this one time, so that's kind of how I see it. Does it mean that Jony left because he was unhappy? I mean, I would love to have Johnny's life.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think Johnny's unhappy any day of the week.
That's right.
So, and does Jony at this point need Apple? No, he doesn't. So is he going to make a big deal and a big huff? No. So I think it was an opportunity to bring up a few things that maybe didn't go well and, paint a picture that wasn't entirely accurate. And that's how I saw the article. Was it an interesting read? Sure. Yeah, it was. But I don't see it like a lot of other people saw it.
I like the article at Fast Company that I linked to on the YML Daily. Jony Ive's real legacy, according to Apple designers who work with him. These are people who work with Ive both in the pre-Steve Jobs days, in the middle, and at the end of their time at Apple. And it presents a much more balanced picture of Ive and his abilities and those kinds of things. And yes, we're always going to be able to point to, as I do, the ridiculous Apple mouse, the ridiculous original Apple Pencil. Both have charging issues. The butterfly keyboard on MacBook Pros. There's all kinds of things that we can nitpick about that are maybe not nitpicky if they happen to you. But overall, in his legacy at Apple, Vice magazine, Motherboard wrote that history will not be kind to Jony Ive. I guarantee history will be much kinder to Jony Ive than they will at Motherboard or Vice.
Yeah.
His history is, like you said, I think you said, set in stone as a amazing designer, an incredible person who helped. As I've always said, the iMac saved Apple, and Jony Ive designed the iMac. End of story.
Yeah, well, and if you're looking at things like the keyboard, I realize that a lot of people have had difficulties with it. The mechanism, the butterfly mechanism for the keyboard, is the first real change that we've had in keyboards in 100 years.
Yeah.
And it is a brilliant design. It didn't work, or it failed in some instances, because of the materials, not the design. So is Jony in charge of the materials? Yeah, probably. And he picked, obviously, for some people, the wrong one.
Yeah.
But they've been trying to figure that out and fix it. And that's clear because every time they put out a new computer, they have, updated keyboard. But the mechanism is always the same. It's the materials that are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's the way that the people that are having problems. Maybe it's the environment that they use and the materials can't handle that, or maybe it's that they hit it too hard and the material can't handle that. I don't know, but the design I think is brilliant.
And I'd much rather have Apple and Jony Ive attempt these things and fail at them and attempt again than have the same boring old devices, whether they be laptops or desktops or mice, that everyone else is using. At least reach and fail as opposed to never reach. You know what? You know what I mean?
And that's great to say, unless you're the one that spent $3,000 on a computer.
True. I mean,
you can't type on it.
Or those folks who bought the trash can Mac Pro that Apple promised was going to be this amazing machine that turned out to be, from their own design, a failure. I'm not going to blame that on Ive, but he certainly had a hand in part of it.
Sure, and I don't know that it was. I think for what they wanted to do at the time, it wasn't a failure. It ended up painting them into a corner.
Yeah,
and they knew that they had to start over, and I think that they looked for ways for years to figure out what they could do to get themselves out of that corner.
Yep.
And I think they just misread the market.
Yep.
And,
which they've done before, and I have no problem. Like the G4 Cube, gorgeous design, shitty computer, but it was an attempt to do something different. The iMac was a gorgeous computer, not a very gorgeous design, not a great computer, but again, it saved the company. So please, Apple, keep doing stuff that keeps us interested in what you're designing, whether you fail or not. As long as you're failing and trying to get better, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
Let's move on. There's an interesting rumor that Apple plans cheaper iPhones specifically for China. They're going to remove Face ID and other high-cost technologies. Do you think there's any legs to this rumor?
I see where the rumors are coming from because Apple's having a difficult time with China right now. And, some of that is economics, some is politics. There's all kinds of things that are factoring into this. Mm-hmm. But, if it becomes a situation where Apple continues to have problems in China, then maybe I could see something like that happening because they need that market to continue to grow. Yep. So they can't, it's not like Apple to necessarily make a product for a specific market, but China is that important where they may make a phone that they can sell at a cheaper price just to boost that market.
Yeah. The danger for Apple, and I said this before, is that if right now the iPhone is aspirational, people dream about owning an iPhone, like we dream about owning a Mac Pro. There's a lot of folks in that lower middle class, which is a massive number of people, larger than the entire population of the United States, who are aspiring to these new consumer electronic devices, to this middle class in China. But if Apple lowers the price too much, that may lower that aspirational value of their devices. And as someone was quoted in the story that I wrote, someone said, if Apple becomes just another phone, then we're going to buy native Chinese phones. And then Apple is in a lose-lose situation. So they've got a very fine line there that they can't make a mistake on, because if they lose that aspirational aspect in the Chinese consumers' minds, they're screwed.
No, you're right. I mean, that could be a very bad thing to happen to Apple, but what's happening to Apple right now is a very bad thing.
Yeah.
You know,
and
so
it's a matter.
They're kind of stuck.
Yeah, it's a matter of the company feels like they have to do something, or do they wait out this administration and these kinds of punitive measures that the government is doing to Chinese companies, both who are trying to import here and tariffs and all the other kind of things that are going on. Does Apple just cross their fingers and hope that in 2 years, 3 years, all this goes away in any number of ways? But if they did that and it doesn't go away, they're going to be 3 years behind the curve.
Yeah, and they're in a tough spot.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And everything that is affecting Apple in the Chinese market right now has nothing to do with Apple.
No, absolutely.
And
right.
that's the tough part.
Yeah.
You know, because, well, what the hell do we do? I mean, the government could decide all of a sudden the two governments are going to play nice and the tariffs are gone and Apple is back in business again.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the economic recovery starts in China because all of the tariffs are gone, and then Apple spent all this money and time putting out a phone that they don't need. Or it could go the way that you said, 3 years down the road, they're still in a tough spot.
Yep.
Now they're in an even tougher spot.
Apple stopped selling their own Apple-branded monitors a few years ago. They sold LG monitors for a while, and now with the new Mac Pro, they're going to be selling the absolutely gorgeous Apple Pro Display XDR, which none of us will be able to afford. Do you think Apple should sell an iMac without the iMac? In other words, just the iMac display, the 21-inch or a 27-inch standalone monitor that would pair up with a Mac Mini, or for those of us who like dual monitors with our laptops? Do you think Apple should do that, and or why haven't they?
Well, I don't know that there's a real market for that.
Really?
And yeah, I really do. I don't, because their most popular computers are laptops, and they have the screen, obviously. And then the next one is the iMac.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, if you're going to buy a Mac Pro, even at the base level, and you want a monitor, I mean, you probably have the money to buy the monitor. I don't think that the Mac Pro or that display was made for us. So, and rightfully so. It was made for the pro market. That's who it needed to be made for.
Absolutely.
So I'm not knocking them for that. So should they make another one that's, you know, lesser money?
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that they should, because I'm not sure that there's a market for it.
I think, and this is where I completely recognize my own personal biases. I've been a dual monitor person for at least 10, 15 years, if not longer, just because of the nature of the things that I do. And even when I'm on a laptop, I've got a dual monitor plugged into the laptop. Right now, I've got a 27-inch iMac. I've still got a second monitor for it. So I'm always in favor of dual monitors. I just feel that for those folks who want that second monitor, they've got a MacBook, or they've got a MacBook Air, or they've got a Mac Mini. They'd like an Apple logoed monitor, and I think.
Yeah.
And well, Apple knows how many LG monitors they sold when they were selling them. They know how many of their own monitors they sold. They can sort of extrapolate and say yes or no that an iMac without the iMac would be a good selling or bad selling monitor.
But I just think that people go to Apple for the simplicity of having the monitor built in.
True.
So they have the iMac. It's powerful, so you don't need to worry about that. You know, if you bought a Mac Pro, you're going to have a monitor. I was also a dual monitor person for a long time. So for my music, and I would have an editing window on one monitor, a mixing window on the other monitor, and it was perfect. But the computer that I bought at that time was a whole lot less than the computer that they sell now. And that computer, while it was a pro computer, it wasn't as pro as what this one was.
Yeah.
You know, so and if Apple is going to do a cheaper monitor, they would have to take half the stuff out that they have in there, and people will complain about that, of course, because they want the exact same hardware but only pay half the money for it.
Right.
You know, so let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, and they would have to make a cheaper computer, I think.
Yeah.
You know, a computer that didn't come with a monitor that was, you know, a Mac Pro, but a Mac Pro minus.
Yeah.
You know, that would be $3,000. And I just don't think Apple wants to be in that game because they've got some of the most popular computers out there already.
Yeah, the biggest downside is Apple would not sell them a monitor for the same price that I paid for my second monitor, which was a few $100, maybe $250.
No, never.
They're never going to do that, and I'm likely to buy one because if it's just a second monitor, that all I need is for text or for, as you said, the tool set for Lightroom or a music app or a video app. You don't need a high quality super resolution monitor for those kinds of things. So that's where I think Apple isn't going to do one because of that. If they're going to do it, it's going to be a high quality, high resolution 5K monitor, which maybe you don't need for your second monitor that's just going to show text and websites on the side.
Yeah, you don't need the power that Apple put in that monitor for that kind of work. And I just don't think that Apple's interested in going into that market. Yeah. And I don't blame them. I mean, you know, I think Apple has all the products that it needs right now for computers already out there. I know that people are going to cringe at that because they're going to say, well, I want a Mac Pro, but I want it at $3,000.
Yeah.
But I think for the first time in a long time, Apple has a true pro lineup.
Yeah.
And I think that they've shown the pro market that, hey, yeah, we're here.
Yeah,
this is better than anything else you can get.
There's no doubt that we as fans of the company have to be very careful of wanting, demanding, begging for all those little things that would fit our own particular little niches that Apple we imagine Apple used to do. They never really did, but we think that they actually did. It's a consumer electronics company. It's a general consumer company nowadays. It's not making specific products for specific tiny little niches. So yeah, I accept the fact that Apple's not going to make this monitor that I want to buy from them. That's for sure. Folks,
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Exactly. But Dr. Jim Dalrymple with The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast. It's called The Dalrymple Report. It's available on the iTunes store each and every week. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Shawn.
Talk to you later, buddy. See ya.
Bye.
Welcome back. This is...
Oh, my.
Oh, my. I don't want to listen to myself. What do we want that for? Welcome back to Your Mac Life. I'm Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And this is our segment we call I Have a Question, but she's trying to change it to I Have a Query.
No, an inquiry, I said.
An inquiry.
Inquiry.
Inquiry? Inquiry?
Inquiry.
Is there a difference?
No. I don't think so.
Enquiry starts with an E.
Oh,
inquiry. Starts with an I.
No, the E and I, yes.
But are they different words? They mean different things.
I believe so, like affect and effect.
No, I know the difference between those two. One's a nerve, one's a vowel, one's a vound. One's, and I said nerve, too. One's a nerve, one's a vound. Moving on.
Can't give the guy a beer.
What's your question this week?
Well, my as the mother of a
Delightful.
Is Rory a millennial? What is all this?
Oh, who cares? He's a 13-year-old.
No, there is a big difference, certainly compared to when I was 13.
Yeah, fair point. Okay.
With this dilemma of and to be quite frank, I would sit in front of. We had 5 channels. And I would come home from school and lay on my tummy with my brother, and we'd watch hours of, Fred Flintstone and the Jetsons and
Get Smart
and the Banana Splits, Gilligan's Island, all that stuff. Nobody knows what we're talking about. But so I'm wondering if anybody would agree with buying a child an Apple Watch so they can close their rings before they get to game.
It's an interesting idea, isn't it? Because you
is.
can control the Apple Watch how many calories are burned. I think you control how many minutes. I think you can control how often you have to stand up. So I don't know if that was the only reason you get an Apple Watch, just so a kid could close his rings before he could do his fun stuff, so before he did his chores. Don't know if that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
MacMan, I wouldn't buy an Apple Watch for a kid, maybe a Fitbit.
Yeah, but an Apple Watch, he's like, Apple Watch is cool.
Well, the other aspect of the Apple Watch versus a Fitbit is it's much more visually interesting.
It is, and he might be, and children have to be motivated to do anything. I mean, we all do, and if it's kind of like and if he's competing with someone else,
That's the other thing. That's what I was going to say. If it was standalone, maybe not. But if he's competing with me,
his stepfather,
maybe that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That you gamify it. That at least on these days, you have to do more activity than your stepfather does. Otherwise, you can't game
on
until
game days. Yeah,
on game days.
Anyway,
Perhaps,
that was my question tonight because. I wondered if people had any idea if it was motivating for a child or, and especially when you're teen and you're going into, 14, 15, you got your Apple Watch and people might go, oh, it's cool. And he might share it with his friends and go, yeah, I'm closing my rings on game days, and might just become
I wonder if, especially now in the summertime, we could do it where, he and I are competing. I mean, you're in fit all by yourself. You don't need that competition. Plus, I couldn't beat her. Mm-hmm. If it was, okay, Rory and I are competing against each other, so we have to go for a family walk.
Yeah.
And all 3 of us, and we do it the night before. So did you close your rings yesterday? No, you can't game as much today. Okay. So tonight, when we go after dinner or in the afternoon or whatever it is, or walking to the beach, whatever we do, then you do it. Okay, so on Tuesday night, we're going for a walk, and if you close your rings, you get to game on
or a bike ride
or that kind of stuff
or something like that. Yeah. Okay. So I just wondered. Something's wrong with Monty's thingamajiggy.
MacMan says, geez, that's right too. MacMan, he'd need a new phone too.
Well, he's pushing for a phone, actually. Oh, but why would he need a new phone,
his 5 SE doesn't match up, doesn't work with the Apple Watch.
Well, he is pushing for a new phone. I was going to see if he's... Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'll think about it. It's an interesting
idea, though. It's interesting because Apple's already... at the top of the show, when you were talking about it, you were asking, has Apple done anything about that? But I haven't seen any advertisements or stories on Apple just posted up a new version of their website to close your rings. I've never, and when they put stories of people who use the Apple Watch. Nothing I've seen from Apple shows any kind of targeting towards teenagers of any kind.
Well, see, I think that's where they're lacking because child obesity, diabetes, it's all becoming an epidemic. I see it everywhere in the schools and schools saying your child has met the weekly physical requirements, all this crap, and it's becoming a huge issue. So I'm wondering why Apple's not saying, hey, you know what, we can make this something that kids can do as well.
Now, MacMan says, I haven't seen Apple push it for kids, mostly likely due to the cost of the watch, but they have pushed the iPad for kids.
Yeah.
They've had a whole
very
series
much.
of kids using the iPad
Yeah.
for work at school. And the iPad costs a lot more than Apple Watch.
Yeah, and they're talking about, if you have fibrillation or if you all that kind of heart stuff, and I'm thinking, well, what about the kids?
Yeah.
So.
I certainly wouldn't get a Series 4, the latest
Oh
Apple
no,
Watch.
I'm not talking about. Of course not.
But the series, at least the Series 3,
Yeah.
which is at a ridiculous price of $200 US now.
Oh, I would get him one.
Which is fairly inexpensive. But
Well,
yeah,
educational benefits, but the thing is, yeah. I mean, we were all educated without an iPad. I mean, they're pushing that because it looks good. I don't know about the educational benefits for all things, for all ages, across all subjects. Yes, it does have educational benefits, but you also need to have a balance.
Yes. And there's educational benefits to the Apple Watch, too, of learning about exercise, learning about
collecting data.
And your heart rate and
assessing that.
Yeah.
And setting goals, which is a huge thing that the schools are trying to get kids to set achievable goals.
It's certainly not as
not physical goals?
It's certainly not as directly educational as reading a book on your iPad. Obviously, that's what MacMan is talking about.
Well, you can make anything educational.
True. Yeah, it's want to think more about it and see if
I am going to. And yes, you're right, MacMan. And he's been saying, Mom, I need a new phone. So,
No, he doesn't need a new phone. He wants a new phone. That's different. There's nothing that he needs to do that he needs a new phone for.
No.
He's not a heavy phone user in general. All he does is text to friends, take photos, and play Minecraft. Watch YouTube videos. He doesn't need a new phone for that stuff. He wants a new phone. What he wants is actually something with more storage to it. Because he won't listen to us when we say, you have 18,000 photos on your phone. Delete some of them.
Oh, no. That photo of that leaf 4 years ago? I want that photo.
That's right.
Yeah, MacMan, we had tablets back in 3rd grade. It was called a small chalkboard.
Yeah,
We kept it at
exactly.
our desks.
That's
I could
right.
not agree with that more.
I
Minecraft
agree.
is still a thing. Monty, he and his friend Lucas, awesome kid, by the way. I love, they sit there and go, oh no, look, there's a magic apple tree. Like I hear all these beautiful, they are playing Minecraft for hours. It is amazing.
Yeah.
They're totally into it.
But
All of them,
But
actually.
they'll play Fortnite for hours, too. So.
But no, they're not. They're not even opening the Fortnite app. They're just playing Minecraft.
When they're by themselves, they'll play Fortnite against each other. They play Minecraft when they're together.
Oh,
they
yes,
can play 2 players.
yes. He and Lucas play Minecraft for hours, yeah.
All right. In our starting point photography segment for this week, tomorrow is July the 4th. Hopefully, everyone in the Your Mac Life audience will have a wonderful, happy, fun, safe July 4th Independence Day holiday week. How many folks are taking Friday off? I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. If you have the choice, some people don't have the choice.
Me! Says
Yeah.
Monty.
Oh, absolutely. Man, Monty, you're self-employed. You don't get days off. Yeah, if you've got Thursday off, take Friday off too. Make it a 4-day weekend. That's good. We talked earlier about fireworks, whether your town's going to have them or not, your community is going to have them or not. And every year we talk about this subject, which is how to take pictures of fireworks. Melissa?
Yes. Use a tripod.
With your vast knowledge of photography, that's the first thing is a very good suggestion. Now, why would you use a tripod to shoot fireworks?
Because you're shooting something that is, first of all, you have to time it very, very carefully because you want to go, oh, they're going to do it. And you have to time it. And you don't want to move because they'll be blurred because you don't have any light. There are 2 reasons I know why.
You're getting close. Let me just fine-tune that. The fireworks need a tripod because, as Melissa said, any motion of the camera is blur. But because you have to have the shutter open for a long period of time, that will cause the blur. And you have to have the shutter open for a long period of time because you don't know.
Have light.
Yeah, you can't just tap the screen to catch a firework. It's just not going to work. The lights are moving, and they're moving fast enough for your eye to enjoy it, but slow enough for it to be blurry in a camera. So you want a stable platform. That being said, you still can't look at your screen and tap the screen and get a picture because what's going to happen is you're going to move the camera. I'll tap Melissa's screen, the camera, the phone on that I'm using. I'm shooting Melissa with my iPhone 10. If I tap the screen as if I was going to take a picture of her, you can see the motion. Melissa, you can see it over here. Just that same tap of that I would do on the screen for a picture.
Oh, yes. Well, you want it on
it.
that timer on the...
So that's one of the things you would definitely
sporadic
do.
timer.
Is you would you have a 3-second and a 10-second timer.
Right.
You would use those, and then you would tap, and then 3 seconds later or 10 seconds later, your shutter would go off. The other thing you can do too is using your headphones. A lot of folks don't realize this or remember this, that the volume button on your headphones will trigger your camera on the iPhone. I still got the music going. Sorry. So what that means is you can just plug in your headphone, sit down with your phone on a tripod, and as you anticipate the shot, push the button. And again, if you have the timer on, or if you're doing it in a one shot selection. The other thing I always tell folks is don't wait until the burst happens to take the picture. Don't aim your camera up at some point in the sky and then push the shutter button or push the volume button, because you won't get a good shot. What you do is look down at the ground where the fireworks are coming from, and you'll often see a little poof, a little burst of light, and that means that firework is going to go off in about 4 seconds, depending on how high they go, 4 to 5 seconds. It's hard to do this with the native camera app on the iPhone, because what you want is at some point there's going to be a bunch of fireworks bursting off, and some will be fading, some will be going fast. So if you can, get a app that allows you to control shutter speed, that will allow you to either do multiple exposure, which some apps do, or control the shutter speed so you can have the shutter open for not the only 3 seconds of the native camera app or the 10 seconds, but maybe something in between. Some camera apps on the iPhone allow what's called bulb mode, which means that the shutter will open and just stay open until you push the shutter again. So now you can judge how long you want the shutter to be open for. Generally don't do it for more than about 5 seconds, so just think in your head 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. There's an app I've used before that just today came out with a new app update. It's called Moment is the app, and they've come up with a light trail setting on the camera, and fireworks are just light trails. They're just trails of light going through the sky. There are examples on their website of cars going through freeways. We've all seen those shots of white lights and red lights of cars going on the freeways. Again, you put it on a tripod, you set up light trail mode, hit the shutter button, and it'll basically take a bunch of pictures over time, and then layer those pictures on top of each other, and you get this nice light trail shot. Everything that's not moving will be in focus. Everything that is moving will be blurry, but because it's dark, you won't see the actual cars as blurs. You'll see the light of the cars as blurs. And that's all a firework is. It's just a light trail. So I think Moment is $6 available on the iTunes, on the App Store. It's a really good app for a whole bunch of different things. The website is unfortunately named Shop Moment, and they really try to say a lot of stuff. But if you go to help.shopmoment.com, you get a lot of advice. It's a little harder to find on the website, but help.shopmoment.com gives you advice on light trails, on motion blur, on a bunch of other different features of the Moment app that I really like to use. If you're using a DSLR, again, you still need to use a tripod. You have the advantage of a wider opening for your light to come in, but the principles are still the same. Set your camera up. Maybe your camera has a firework mode. A lot of cameras do, a firework scene mode. See if your camera has that. If it doesn't, go to shutter priority mode. Remember, what's the rule for aperture and shutter?
What do you mean?
What have I told you should make for the rule? How do you know when to shoot in aperture versus when to shoot in shutter priority?
If it's moving, I know if it's moving or if it's still, right?
Correct. Which one is which?
So if it's moving, it's aperture? No, if it's moving, okay. I had a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
If
Okay.
it's moving, you use shutter priority. If it's standing still, use aperture priority.
Yeah, I got to figure out a mnemonic for that.
So the idea is that because the fireworks are moving, use shutter priority. And you set your camera up to shoot at 5-second burst. And again, use a remote shutter if you can. Don't tap the shutter button. And the other thing that you have the advantage of with a DSLR is focus somewhere in the distance. And this is why I always tell folks, when you shoot fireworks, go to the fireworks place early. Focus on like something off in the distance, a few miles away, a mountaintop. Focus. If you want to, you can do manual focus or automatic focus, whatever. And then flip your lens or your camera settings to manual focus, and then don't touch your lens again. Once you've got that focus set, you don't want to touch it again when it's in the sky, because you can't get it back because it's in the sky. You can't. There's nothing to focus on in a dark sky. So when it's light out, find something a couple miles away, focus on that point, then turn on manual and just sort of lock down your lens by don't touch it again. There's no reason for you to touch your lens again. It's hard to do that on the iPhone. It's hard to set focus and then not have it try to refocus on something in the sky. It's kind of hard to do. On manual apps like Moment and Pro Camera and that kind of stuff, you can set your own focus point. There you go. Monty, shutter and speed both begin with an S.
Well, I think I figured that out the other morning when we were talking about this, and I didn't remember. The trick is to remember your own little tricks.
Mnemonics are useless unless you remember them. Exactly. Good point. So if you take any good 4th of July fireworks, send them off to us. Let us know. Let us see your fireworks. We didn't have any here this year. But the other aspect of it too is, don't worry too much about it. There's going to be 8,000 photos on.
Monty says, just watch them.
Just watch them. Exactly. Unless you're going to really enjoy figuring this stuff out, don't stress out about the fireworks. Just lie back, watch them, enjoy them. Enjoy the music, enjoy the fireworks, enjoy whatever aspects of the holiday you can. But yeah, don't stress out too much about trying to capture that stuff. As always, send us emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. We always love getting emails from you guys about anything we talk about during the show. Our good friend Scott Thrift says, end of the Jony Ives era. I find the various stories in the end of the Jony Ives era to fall into two camps. It's time for a change, but his impact will still be evident for years. And the, oh my God, the world is ending group. Personally, I think it's probably time for some change. Yes, Ives' design work reinvigorated Apple and brought us a period of amazing industrial design that has changed the landscape of the computer and mobile device design forever. That being said, there have been some absolute shockers too. The Apple battery case that looks like it had an alien chest buster waiting to come forth. The trash can Mac Pro, the ill-fated AirPower. It's fairly obvious that Ives will be deeply involved in Apple's design for years to come, but also allow the next Ives to come to the front, and I'm excited to see what's next. I do not care for Apple News. I wanted to say that in a Sam I Am, Green Eggs and Ham kind of line. Edward Gould. But sometimes I find it useful. At times, I'd like to send the URL of the story in Apple News, but Mail cannot find a way of easily getting the URL. Doesn't someone have a quick way to get the URL of an Apple News story? I know it can be done, as I found a way to semi-get it by using the Mail option. I don't want to go through the extra step or two to get to it, though. I just need a quick and dirty way to get the URL of the story I'm looking at into Apple Mail. Anyone have any suggestions? I don't, Edward, because I don't use Apple News. I know on the desktop you can. I'm just going to open up Apple News real quick. Oops, sorry. Let me cover up my face.
All right.
Click on News Story on the desktop and then stop it. Yeah, of course. In the upper right-hand corner, there is the Share menu, and you can add it to Notes, Messages, Reminders, and Mail. So if you wanted to get it in a Mail, it'll pop up with the story already in the email. And then you can either cut and paste that or send that email off. So I'm just going to check to make sure that email, that is what it does. Yeah, it will open up it in Safari, so I don't know how to do that. Look for that share menu in Apple News on iOS if that's what you're asking about specifically. This is from NCM. Oh, Nina. Hi, I need some advice. I want to extract the audio track from a video I shot on my iPhone X and use it as the soundtrack to a slideshow of photographs. Not done this before, and I do not really know where to start, much less how to proceed. Apps that I own, any suggestion would be very helpful. That's actually really easy, Nina. You take the video and on your iPhone and put it into an iMovie project. Then you take all the photos that you want and put those into the iMovie project as well. Select the video that has the sound, and then I think it's delete audio or extract audio. There's an option there to do that. You extract the audio, so what it'll do is it'll split the video into video only and audio only. Then just delete the video. Then you just drag and drop your images over top of the audio, and you've created a slideshow with an audio track. So hopefully that will help and work out for you. Is there anything else? I'm trying to see if there any other. From Jeff, I'd like to have my signature on each of my emails, but I got 6 different ones. When I respond to an email, it puts the signature at the end of the email and not under my short reply. How can I get it near the top?
That happens to me too.
I hate people who do that.
What's that?
I send them an email. Blah, 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 blah. And then when they respond on top of my email. It's called top posting. Mm-hmm. As opposed to posting in the middle of the email. If I've asked you 4 or 5 questions, respond in line.
Oh, I do
for the
that
questions.
as well. Yes.
If it's just a quick, because the other thing is when you top post, you're sending me back my own email. Mm-hmm. I know what I wrote to you. You know, so for example, people will respond to the YML Daily newsletter to the email, including the entire email. You're not going to resend it to me. Mm-hmm. I wrote it. I read it.
Because they're just going.
Yeah, but delete unnecessary stuff out of the email. But what you can do is it's in your mail preferences under signatures, and then it's place signature above quoted text. So when you hit reply to an email, it'll open up a new window. Your email address your signature file will be at the top of that email. You put the cursor above your signature file, start typing and pissing people off. Go right ahead. What?
Nothing.
It's true. I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
Buddy, is there any difference between save as PDF and export as PDF? Is there? By the way, MacMan says you can extract it in QuickTime too, or at least try in QuickTime 7 you could. Yeah, but MacMan, there's no point in putting that on her desktop, extracting in QuickTime 7, and then putting it into another app to create the slideshow she wants. My method is just a one-stop shop. She can do the slideshow and the extraction right there in iMovie on her phone.
So is there a difference between
save as PDF under the print menu and export as PDF under the file menu?
Well, if I save something I think there is a difference.
Really? What do you think the difference might be?
Well, I save something as PDF. Well, I can't so I cannot save something as PDF and then export it as PDF even though it wasn't a PDF originally?
Correct. Yeah, you can take a Word document. You can take a Word document, save it as a PDF, or you can export it as a PDF.
And then and you haven't done anything to it to manipulate it to become a PDF. Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
I have no idea the answer to Buddy's question, except, Buddy, try it.
You can always try it. Send it to yourself, right?
Yeah, give it, or just look at it on your desktop. If you do a save as PDF under the print menu, put it on your desktop and call it save as PDF.
Right.
And then do export as PDF.
And see if it's...
Put it on your desktop as export on PDF. Look at the file size of them and see if it's the same file size. Then open them up side by side. See if there's any difference.
Okay.
There's rather than but
Because
again,
then why would I even bother anymore? That means that I could send everything as PDF.
if you wanted to. Buddy, I don't mean to tease you about this or make you feel small about this, but this is the kind of stuff that you just try. You're not going to hurt your computer doing this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're curious with this kind of stuff, one of the wonderful things about Macintosh, and a lot of computers for that matter, but one of the great things about Macintosh is you can satisfy your curiosity really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Is this different than this? Let me try and see.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got...
Be brave.
Exactly, yeah. I use an app called ScreenFlow for most of my editing of my videos because it's simpler and easier and faster than Final Cut Pro. But I was curious as to what the different file sizes would be and the quality of those file size of those images would be with different export, what they're called codecs, compression, decompression things, algorithms. And so I just did it. I had a little 30-second video, and I would export it at all the different settings that was available in ScreenFlow, and then open them, looked at them in file size, then open them up side by side by side by side, and saw, okay, I can't tell the difference in that one and that one. Just try it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You
And I don't mean to be condescending because I have to practice being brave as well with this stuff.
That's it for tonight's show, folks. I want to say thanks, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for being here each and every week. Thanks to you guys for being tuned in and asking questions and helping to answer questions. I know we had a problem with IRC. Don sent me an email saying he was having a problem getting into the IRC. There was a glitch in the IRC server, and hopefully we'll get that fixed for next week's show. Apologies for that, Don. But something else. Oh, there won't be a YML Daily tomorrow for those of you who are subscribed to it, or Thursday. It's American Independence Day. It's a day off. Plus,
But it's for America.
75% of our audience is American. Plus, before I was so rudely interrupted, it's our anniversary tomorrow.
It's our anniversary. Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. La 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 la. Oh, so
2 years ago, July 4th, 11:30 a.m. at the Black Bean Cafe in Gibsons, British Columbia. I met her.
Well, in person.
In person, yes, in person.
Yes.
So tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. on July 4th, we will be at the Black Bean Cafe having a coffee.
Yes, we did that last year.
That's going to be our tradition.
And we'll do
Until
it
the black bean burns down, damn it. So that's where we're going to be. We're going to be off doing that. So, yes, thanks you guys for being tuned in the show.
So Melissa's put up with him for another year, huh?
Bless you, child.
Bless you, child.
Jesus.
Bless you. Isn't that, is that okay for Monty to say bless you to me? Like, or is it... Well, because I know that in the South, God, or like, bless you. Is it different for Monty?
Monty?
No, not that I think you would do that, Monty.
Monty will explain.
Okay.
Watch. Bless you, child is not the same as
Bless your heart.
Is
Aha. Bless your heart is different depending on the context.
It has to be done very conscious. Oh, bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Which means, aren't you stupid?
Yes, but anyway, so MacMan said we picked a major holiday so that you don't forget.
We didn't actually
I don't
pick
know
it.
how that happened.
It didn't happen that way. It was just.
Know. Just happened to be that way.
Was it a Monday or Tuesday?
I think it was. It must have been
2 years ago. It would have been Tuesday.
a Tuesday. Yeah, but I was on the summer break. So.
Yeah, that's right. So it didn't matter. Anyway, yes. So we'll be having our date coffee break tomorrow. Folks, as always, thank you guys very much for joining us. As always, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!